You are at war with yourself and likely don't realize it. Your thoughts, beliefs, habits, and actions often sabotage you. Are they helping you overcome adversity or setting you up for failure? To win this battle, you must connect with your inner warrior. We all have a warrior within us, one that strengthens our resolve and helps us to rise to meet life's challenges. If you're just surviving rather than thriving, then it's time to embrace the warrior archetype, live the warrior ethos, and ascend. If you are a veteran, first responder, or someone looking to take charge of your life, find your tribe, and then be the hero of your own story, this podcast is for you. Join Mike Kinney and Matt Hastings, two retired U.S. Army officers who served in U.S. Army Special Operations and Army Aviation units, as they share with you optimal performance practices they learned in their time with the Military and Warriors Ascent, a 501c3 nonprofit that helps veterans and warriors with PTS.
All right, so let me ask Matt and the audience, have you ever felt that you were just, going through the motions, sometimes not miserable, but not exactly motivated either, just kind of lost, a ship adrift per se? So does that describe you, or at least describes all of us at times, right? The term for this is languishing, right? Where you're not miserable, but you're not flourishing either. And flourishing is what it is that we're striving for. So Abraham Maslow, right? The guy that brought you the hierarchy of needs, that's psychologist, right? States that what one can be, one must be, right? And this need for self-actualization is very powerful, and it's tied inextricably to mental health and well-being. So the question is, how is it that you get there, right? So we'll talk about that today, and this is the Warriors Ascent podcast. I'm Mike Kenny. This is Matt Hastings, two retired military veterans. And today, this episode, Tending the Soul or Spirit, Self-Actualization, Purpose, and Mission. So we see on the right, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So it's a little bit of an eye chart. Suffice it to say at the bottom rung are your basic needs, physiological, right? Food, water, etc., right? Safety needs a little bit above that, psychological needs. And then really at the top, the pinnacle, and a lot of people I don't think realize this, is self-actualization, right? So achieving one's full potential, right? Including creative activities, right? So in essence, what I want us to take away from this is this notion that to really tap into that sense of health and well-being, just as important as food, water, safety, belongingness, and things of that nature, it's that sense of self-actualization. And I know a lot of the people that have gone through Warriors Ascent, many of who've retired from the military or the fire department or law enforcement, their basic needs are met. They've got a retirement, paycheck, what have you, but they're just a ship adrift. Right. And you wonder why that is. And you ask them, it's like, so what is it? It's that sense of mission. It's that sense of purpose. Right. So much of their identity was, I'll say, inextricably linked with their profession, with who it is that they were.
Right.
Chief Warrant Officer 4, Lieutenant Colonel, police chief, fire captain, whatever it might be. And now that I'll say, identity has been stripped from them, they really are, I'll say, at a loss. So what is your experience with that?
Well, one of the things that we talked about in here is writing a mission statement. And when I was at Warriors Ascent and the day came to write a mission statement, I couldn't believe that I had never written myself a mission statement. I have written mission statements for operation orders countless times. I've done it for companies. I have a master's degree in doing this. And I never once thought to write my own mission statement for my life. And that awakening right there kind of blew me away. And I wonder, I think a lot of people don't have any kind of idea, like maybe written down, that it's actually like their vision for their life, their purpose of their life. And again, when you come out of the military for 20 plus years and everything was a goal to make the next level, whether it was in flight school or whether it was becoming the next grade or rank, or making the school, or being the best at the school that you're in. I mean, you had a plan, you had goals, you had these baby steps that took you along the way, and ultimately to retirement. And, and at this point, I had land, I had all the things you're supposed to want.
That's right.
And I was only 46 years old.
That's right.
And it's like
a young guy, by all accounts.
I'm sitting on top of the world, and quickly it was miserable.
Right.
Because I don't know, I wasn't serving any higher purpose, really. I wasn't doing anything. People would say to you, like, thanks for your service. And after a while, it's like, man, I haven't done anything for anybody in a really long time. I started feeling really bad about myself. So it's pretty interesting, to readjust and say, what is my new purpose? What is my mission statement? And that has been, a very long adventure trying to figure that out. And I'm sure I'm not alone. I'm sure.
No, I mean, that's a great discussion. So we talk about, tending the soul and spirit. And I know we talked about this before. For many, obviously, the religious aspects are absolutely critical. A higher being, God, whether you're, Christian, Catholic, Muslim, Islam, whatever it might be. That's, I'll say, a powerful calling, a sense of purpose. But even, I'll say, beyond that, what we're talking about, I mean, hey, I'm a Roman Catholic myself. That's important to me. But, at the same time, I think what we're getting at here also is just this notion that your life has, definitely a higher purpose than just going to work, making the donuts,
right,
doing your thing, and to really self-actualize. You need to be clear on that. And again, to your point, when all throughout our military careers, we were very clear on what our mission was, commander's intent, all of that. And then you reflect on your life and it's like, well, what's your personal mission statement? And all of a sudden you're like, well, geez, I've never really quite thought about that. And as a guy that, is an SF guy and a SAMS planner, operational level planner, you're like, oh, how messed up of me not to have thought about that. It's been said too, and we talk about this at Warriors Ascent for the self-efficacy block of instruction, in other words, how to be effective, that people spend more time planning a vacation than they do planning their lives. And you say that to people and they look at you and go, you're absolutely right. Life becomes almost emergent where, well, life just happens. It's like, well, yes, exactly. And when it just happens, don't be surprised when what you get is not what you wanted or not what you planned for. So that's absolutely
It definitely smooths
critical.
things out when you're on, I call it a glide slope or a glide path, being an aviator, but it's really
the pilot thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
But it's really about like, how can I get somewhere if I don't know where I'm going, one, and two, if I don't have a map to get me there. It's like I can't even draw a route to this location without, I have to have all these things in order to get there. So like, for me, it wasn't just being bored. There was something wrong with not having a purpose. And now my purpose is to continue to educate other warriors out there that we don't need to sit around and be victims. And that's my new purpose. And doing it through talking on podcasts or talking in front of crowds of people or whatever we need to do. I'm happy to do that. But yeah, so without it though, you're just kind of rolling through life and it's just not fulfilling.
Right. I mean, you're just going through the motions and you're surviving, you're
it takes you back to that languishing word, and it's like,
right.
There's more to it. We could flourish and we have the skills to do that.
Right. Now, so for our purpose, the way, and this certainly isn't the only way to delineate, what your purpose is. And we'll go through something else, a Venn diagram, that at least is a technique to get at that. But first and foremost, purpose, what is your overarching purpose, right? So what is it that you were put on this earth to do? And I know that sounds lofty and like, oh, geez, what the heck, but hey, it's important, why, in your mind, what is it that you feel, whether you believe in God or otherwise, that you were put on this earth to do? What is your purpose? And that may be, hey, to be an awesome father, husband, and man, and just set a good example. And that is perfectly cool and fine. You said the warrior thing. I mean, I'll speak for myself, the warrior's ascent. I've done that my whole life. Did, karate since I was 7 years old, martial arts, wrestling, boxing, all of that. Those were the sports that I did. West Point, Airborne Ranger, this, that, and the other things. So that warrior aspect is really important to me, and not in a way that's like, abusive and toxic, like every problem needs to be solved, right, with violence of action and all that stuff. Certainly not. But that warrior ethos, the warrior archetype, all the things that we talked about, in the pilot episode, are I'll say definitely in my DNA. And from a purpose standpoint, I think bringing, to light the emergence of that warrior archetype and warrior ethos for me is very important. So next up under that, I'll say mission. So mission is the application of your purpose, right? So we'll say operationalizing it. So if your purpose is like what you're saying, to bring the warrior forth, to empower warriors, your mission, would be, well, what does that look like on the ground, right, day to day? How are you putting that into action? So for